was the year 1958 when this young and aspiring writer set out to publish his first manuscript, a book that would focus on the Western influence on religion, traditional African beliefs, and the society in general. Little did Chinua Achebe know that 50 years on, his name would be a household name. His book would have been translated in over 30 different languages, and he would still be relevant in today's world and society. Welcome, we say, Nyase. Welcome to Messengers, a show that introduces you to African arts and artists all over the world. I am your host, Oyiza. This show is the second of our two-part series that celebrates 50 years of the man and his works. Stay with us. Critics have accused Chinua Achebe in his book Things Fall Apart of downplaying the role of the African woman in today's society. But Achebe is quick to answer that it's quite the contrary, as displayed in Nwoye's mother, Okonkwo's wife, and also his love for his daughter, Ezema. The role of the African woman, our mothers, our wives, is still as relevant as it was back then.
Many people think that what I'm doing is praising the position of women. It's not, it's very opposite. What I was doing was pointing out how unjust the Igbo society is to women, and how better to exploit than to make the hero of the story, Okonkwo, all his problems are problems to do with the feminine. There's nothing else wrong with Okonkwo except his failure to understand that the gentleness, the compassion which we associate with women is even more important than strength. Now, people don't understand why I am showing these women who are not in charge. I'm showing them that way because that's how it is in the society I want to change. And that's what Okonkwo was not able to learn. And I want others after him to learn it, that women, compassion, music, these things are as valuable, more valuable than war and violence. They're great, they're good. There was a time when it seemed as if the thing was drying up, but anybody who knows what art and is would have known that it was waiting for something to happen. I don't know what it is, but it, we seem to be back at work. Why? The reason I didn't receive national honors was that I didn't want to receive national honors from Nigeria as it was, and perhaps maybe still is today. I was tired of hoping that someone would come up who would understand the value of the position that we earn because of our education or leadership or whatever, and to apply it to make our people happier and more prosperous. Oh, just a nice guy. He has. What I feel towards him is a sense of wonder and pity. And pity is probably not a good word, because Okonkwo is a very dignified and proud person and would not like anyone to pity him. But I'm sort of concerned that a major aspect of our human experience has to be suffering and failing to reach where you set out to go because of all kinds of things on the way. And so one day somebody came to me in the hospital after I had this accident. And what he said, the question he asked me was, why you? Why would this happen to you? So I said, I didn't think twice. I said to him, do you have an idea of somebody else to whom it should have happened? And what I was saying is that our world is tragic by nature. And that's why tragic stories appeal to me. And far more than happy and comic stories.
What kind of story does an Anglophone Cameroonian write? Especially when to the left he has French Cameroon, to the right he has neighboring Nigeria that's also so huge. So we are stuck there in the middle.
Oh, that's something they have to find out themselves. And you see, that uncomfortable, well, forget the word you use for that little enclave or something, that has a story. That feeling of being the little, almost forgotten member tucked away there, there's a huge story there. You see, the mistake many people make is to think that a successful story is successful because it is big, or because it is somebody else's story that has worked. So I don't have something. You hear some people say, we were not, I was not taught my culture. So what do I do? Well, the fact that you were not taught your culture is a big story. You see, we mustn't wait for a story that looks like somebody else's story before we can recognize our possibility. You see, the Cameroonians, I went to school with them, because at that time, every term, a certain number of Cameroonians would come to Mwahia. It was part of, so I knew a number of Cameroonians, Noto.
Oh yes, Lawyer Noto.
Nkweta.
Okay, Nkweta became an ambassador.
That's right.
Okay.
all these people, for a whole generation, going back to Ndele.
Yes, Ndele, yeah.
Yeah, he was a doctor and was a leader of government business in Cameroon. He, in fact, led your exit from Nigeria. And we in Nigeria could be saying to you, serves you right. Because yeah.
Cameroonians, are you hearing that?
Yeah, next time, you see, be careful about big neighbors and big friends. Actually, seriously, what happened was not quite fair. Because what happened when British Cameroon joined French Cameroon was that the power moved to the north, and somehow you had a very crafty ruler in the north. The Sardana of Sokoto was then the premier of northern Nigeria. He managed to take the
northern part.
Yes, into Nigeria, while the south went to Cameroon. But that's where you are now, and your business is, in my view, to find the story about your condition. When I came back, this is during the Biafran War, I had just traveled from Enugu to my home to announce to my family that I heard on the radio that Okibo had been killed. My son of 2 years or 3 said, "Daddy, don't let him die." So, and the reason was that Okibo had made friends with him. Yeah, Okibo had friends everywhere, children, old people. And I remember whenever he came to visit us, this boy, the little boy, will hold his hand and try to break it, and Okibo will be pretending to be crying, you see, and they will be struggling this way, and Okibo will say over, he said, "Children are so wicked." And so that's the boy who said, "Don't let him die," you see. And the reason I say this is that I then decided to publish something called "Don't Let Him Die," an anthology of poetry by friends of Okibo, on anyone who wanted to contribute something. There was no plan which will work unless the subject, in this case Okibo, had something of interest to say. His life was so romantic in a way. His life and death was so extraordinary. He just seemed so unlike anybody else you knew. So that's material for the kind of history that we have of him, but also the profound nature of his poetry. So it is both his life and his works. I began by telling you the story of, no, I didn't begin, but I told you the fellow who said, "Why should it happen to you?" And my answer is, why not? And that's really what I believe. And they said, look at my fiction. I mean, Okonkwo is, strong-headed and wouldn't listen to advice and etc. And what happens? He comes to a sticky end. Then I said, okay, let me try a different kind of African, an intellectual kind of person. So I go to Ezolo, Arrow of God, a priest, a philosopher. And what happens to him? He comes to a sticky end. So there's no way out. What came to us, in Igbo they say that what came to Nte. Nte is a small insect. What came to it was bigger than Nte. What was caught in his trap went and set a trap, and something bigger than himself was caught in that trap. So what does Nte do? So there is no way, there's no short answer to the problem posed to us from the moment the initiative was taken from us and we lost our freedom and independence. Well, I think it was the day I finished. But you see, the thing with writing, with my kind of writing, is that you never really finish. When I thought I had finished, B.C. Onabanjo, with whom I was sharing accommodation in London, we both went to the BBC, and he's a friend of mine. He knew I had this manuscript, and he said to me, "Why don't you show it to this man?" The man was a producer, BBC producer, who was a novelist. Gilbert Phelps. So I was very shy, So this is it, show him. So after a while, I took this thing and told him I was writing. And he looked as writers would if you bring them a manuscript. Say, oh, no, it wasn't hostile, but he wasn't exactly embracing me. But he accepted it very politely. And then BC and I, we went some British Council tour of 3 or 4 days. And one day I came back from an outing, and there was a message for me. It said Gilbert Phelps had called and left his number. So I said, well, if he doesn't like the book, would he make a phone call? Wouldn't he wait for me to return? So maybe he likes it. So I would call him. That was the first response I had. And eventually, to cut a long story short, he liked this book. He recommended his publishers to see it. Meanwhile, his publishers saw it and they were ready to start. I said, no, the book is not ready. I had made a mistake in thinking that I could have 3 generations in one book. And yet it's not a big book. So it is too thin to carry this weight. That version of Things Fall Apart had Okonkwo's children's generation and the 3rd generation.
Wow.
So bringing it to today. And now I realized just suddenly that there are 3 books here. The first part is Okonkwo. So that's what I'm going to do. And after that, I'll see what happens about the others. And so I rewrote the book with this emphasis on Okonkwo's generation, not his son. Eventually, I wrote No Longer This, which was, as you know, the story of his Okonkwo's son. But what about my father's generation? That one is still waiting to be done. So you see, there's no quick answer to your question. This is Chinua Achebe. You are watching Messengers.
We shared lunch and then we shared jokes. Achebe took us back in time to a place I personally never witnessed. But all I can say is I might as well have been there. The hours spent with this African great will forever be etched in my memory. And I hope that you were able to take something out of it too. Sadly, that is the end of our show today. And until next time, we will bring you another great African artist making waves across the Atlantic. I'm your host, Oyiza.